So it looks like there's this new AI startup that actually made an entire episode of South Park with no voice actors, no writers, no animators, just the whole episode built by the software. Is that right?
Dude, this thing caught me so off guard. I woke up early, couldn't sleep, hit my timeline, watched the full 11-minute episode of this, and it's from a company that is called Feastables Simulation. They released their full white paper as well, where it just goes over how their entire goal here is to roll out AI content, like basically AI shows. They've talked about how it's Oculus, Pixar, and an AI team building an AI Westworld, two-time Emmy and Peabody Award winners, and they show how they do it. So you can select the various cast. They use the model, ingested all the episodes of existing South Park, and in the episode, the AI wrote an episode. So let me break this down. It's an AI episode written by AI about deep fakes in content. I know Pio said the movie Inception sucks, but this is literally Inception of AI cartoons right now. And the episode was good. It's an 11-minute video. I never thought I'd watch a full 11-minute video on Twitter, but in it, the whole premise is that they go around to what they call C-list actors. There's Tom Cruise, Meryl Streep, and somebody else. And the whole time they just keep calling them A-list actors, trying to hire them for their likeness to be deep fakes in movies they're trying to put out. It's all Cartman's idea. The voice actors are spot on. The animation's spot on, candidly. And watching it, I was like, I'm entertained by this. Top to bottom, completely entertained. Full video. If you haven't seen it, I think their is at Fable Simulation. It's worth the watch, and the white paper is even better. They have a multi-part breakdown of how they actually did the episode, where they drop characters and scenes they have, and it looks extremely user-friendly. And this thing is to me, I'm holy shit. If this is cost-effective, you're going to see some quality content just churned out wicked quick.
I'm having a little of a, crisis over here. And what us as humans, what are we to do? What's our purpose? These things can do this so much better.
I ask myself that every day, Kicks, and let me tell you, you're never going to come up with an answer. Okay?
Fuck, dude. Now I understand Buddhism. I think.
But Kicks, you have to understand your purpose as an American is to consume. Just think, what should I be doing right now? And the answer is you should be buying. And if you think, maybe I've bought enough, the answer is no. You should just be buying more. Your role in society is to go out and spend. You're out of money? No problem. Get a credit card. Spend more. Leverage more. Leverage it up, baby. That's your role in society, as we learned, from that episode of Rick and Morty.
Damn right.
Spencer is a well-known philosopher who studied philosophy in university. Who's your favorite philosopher, Spencer?
This is complicated. I really like Tocqueville in general, but I do find Slavoj Žižek, who Kix mentioned yesterday, very entertaining. My favorite quote, we didn't get to this yesterday, but I think it's important to throw in today. My favorite quote from him, he's got this interview, and he's famous for in his interviews, the interviewer usually gets at most 5 words total in the whole interview. He'll just rant the whole time. And one time he mentioned it, he says, I talk very fast and I speak and I never let you speak because I think if I pause for a moment to let you speak, you will realize for a moment that nothing I've said has made any sense. And if I give you the time to realize that, I'm done for. And, I think that there's a few people on Twitter that kind of take the same approach, right? If you let people think too long, they'll find the flaws in the thing you're saying. But if you keep giving them new ideas, then how can they find the flaw? Because they're always thinking about the new thing that you said. So it's really important that you just never let anyone else talk. That's the new philosophy.
I love it when, brilliant leaders in their respective fields basically say that they don't know anything and, acknowledge, they have that self-awareness. I love that. That's hilarious. Real quick, I wanted to point out, so Mr. Beast Feastables, we talk about Mr. Beast on this show from time to time. He's the #1 content creator in the world. Mr. Beast Feastables are quickly on the path to be one of the most successful products launched in the last year in the entire world. They launched in the UK 10 days ago. They've been selling out of every single retail store that they've hit. Mr. Beast also said that Hershey is doing taste tests with the Hershey chocolates and Feastables for customer market research. So he's getting the Hershey collab. I mean, this is pretty wild stuff. Nick, what do you make of the success that Mr. Beast is having with retail products?
I mean, it's not surprising. The real question is the product good? As we learned Logan Paul's drink is pure poison that burns through the bottom of plastic bottles. That was complete nonsense that we said on the show the other day. I don't know if that's actually true. Separately, Logan Paul actually came out and said that like apparently all the stuff that had come out about it was completely fake. For example, that there were complaints about the quality of his Prime energy drink in Canada. And he was like, well, here's the thing. We don't sell in Canada. So those were illegally acquired or fake versions of our energy drink, was a comment that he said. I don't know if the quality of his drink is good. I do know that Bunny thrives on that drink in particular. The real question here is for Bunny. Have you had Feastables?
Oh yeah, dude, my son loves Feastables. So to be honest, it's a small candy bar. It's not that good. It's kind of overpriced, right? Like
I was just guessing that Feastables was Lunchables for fat kids. I'd never heard of that before.
And then also with the Prime stuff, the biggest mix-up was it was like people were conflating the sports drink, like the sports hydration drink, with the energy drink, right? People were thinking that the 15 grams of caffeine was in the hydration drink when it's in the energy drink. And that's not really marketed for kids. Like if you're a parent and you're giving your kid, like the energy drink is like a Red Bull. Like, yeah. I don't know who would give that. So
that's like your son having a headache, and instead of giving him Advil, you give him Adderall.
Exactly.
I love how Bunny is he's an expert when it comes to all things, YouTuber products that are being
brands,
influencer brands. It is actually pretty funny. I think maybe it's just reflective of the ages of Bunny's kids. Ladies and
I was going to say, it totally makes sense that Feastables have gone to the UK, because I haven't tried them, but just looking at that package, it really it's very nostalgic to the type of chocolate I would buy for like 70 cents when I was a kid. But obviously it doesn't cost 70 cents. But if you were to eat that now as an adult, you would just think that it tastes like a really bad version of Twix or a really bad version of Kit Kat. Like I'm not a Hershey's fan personally. I find the chocolate to taste like, it doesn't taste like chocolate, basically. I say that with love, but I feel like Hershey doesn't taste like chocolate. So I'm not kind of surprised there's a partnership there. But I feel like if you were to take that product and put it in Switzerland or Belgium, I'm not sure how the sales would do. But in the UK, that is the perfect market for like chocolate, which is kind of like mediocre, but people who love to snack, which is the British, they love to snack, would snack on that, and it would hit all target ages. So the UK market being sold out totally makes sense.
So there isn't a partnership with Hershey's. First of all, that's not the messaging that he's talking about. Is he always compares himself to Hershey's and how they taste better. One of the key things here is that they use sugar instead of corn syrup with their chocolate, whereas like something like Snickers uses corn syrup. They use pure sugar, and a mere 22 grams of sugar per bar, which is pretty significant, but that is better than consuming corn syrup. I think that's the main difference between them and a lot of other chocolates. And they also claim that the milk that's used in the bars is from sourced from grass-fed animals is the other thing.
Probably Horizon Organic. I mean, who doesn't drink that?
Well, my question is this. So like we've talked about, like, why did he make Feastables, right? Like he made Feastables because he couldn't do big enough brand partnerships. So he had to become his own brand. But it's interesting to me, and this is sort of like the VC side, right? Like, why is he doing a CPG brand versus doing like a B2B SaaS company? Like, is really the most valuable thing he could do to his audience selling chocolate? I find that really hard to believe. It feels like there should be higher value things. Like, I think he has a higher value audience than he thinks. And I've seen YouTubers over optimize for this, because like as a YouTuber, you're like, okay, views. I need to serve as many people as possible. But that's not always profit maximizing. Like, it might be profit maximizing to actually just serve a very small segment of his audience, like a much higher value product. I don't know, right? But it's just interesting to me that like you see both Prime and Feastables being CPG brands, which are typically not like where you think of like high markups on revenue.
Well, the beginning of this has to do with the fact that you are probably right, but the majority of the audience that people are selling their merch and everything else to are young kids. So you're aiming for like 10 to 16 is like the demographic that's purchasing these products, and they're the most they're the most responsive to advertising segments, especially from people that they care about. The beauty of the YouTubers versus, like, if you think of traditional television shows back when like cartoons and some of these other things were relevant, they can actually connect with those other people because they're doing real things that are like real life experiences that they can feel inspired by, and then they end up buying those products associated with those influencers. And I think they're just going for that mass appeal. I was watching a documentary the other day on I'm too old for anybody on this show to actually know American Ninja Warrior. Not American no, sorry.
The predecessor?
American Gladiator. So Gladiators.
That show is awesome.
And basically, there's a documentary on Netflix, which I highly recommend watching, about the history of American Gladiator. It's so good. It's just a trip down memory lane here. But what they were articulating was all of the merchandise sales goes to young kids, basically. And I think that when you see Logan Paul, when you see let's be clear, Logan Paul now has his podcast, but when he was doing vlogging, his audience for that, and frankly, I still think with his podcast as well, is all young kids, basically, because they're the only ones that can, especially like someone like Jake Paul or someone, they're the only people that can tolerate watching these videos for an extended period of time. Mr. Beast actually makes good content, but I think the reason that a lot of us watch it or have watched it in the past was to understand sort of the techniques that Mr. Beast was using. Now he's just making like better and better content where it's becoming like television show level quality. And he also gave an example of testing narrative. Anyways, I'm going on a tangent. The bottom line is, I think that's the main reason that they go after these most common goods. The problem is I don't know, like, well, there's also a thing around like parents are more educated on nutrition than they were. Like, if you think when I was a kid, sometimes we'd have TV dinners. Those things are just trash. Like, I don't know if parents still even buy those because the quality is like so bad. So I don't know like how that's evolving as well. But you'll notice from both Logan Paul and from Mr. Beast, they talk about the quality of the ingredients, why this thing is healthier than the other crappy product, despite the fact that both of them are unhealthy. But I don't know. I'm curious what you all think about that. And yeah, that's my. Well,
I can go off on nutrition all day. Looked like Spencer wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say this. Look, I mean, the quality, the healthy chocolate bars and Red Bull competitors, right? Like, I don't know. But what my point here, Nick, before was like, I think it'd be interesting. Like, what if you weaponize the youth to go sell like SaaS products to their parents, right? Like, just make it be like, all right, kids, you got to go out and sell our off-brand Mr. Beast sales force to go. I don't know. Like, that feels higher EV to me.
That's something a VC would say.
Yeah, I don't know.
But like, I don't think that's the approach. I think the reality is you're trying to buy things that kids would purchase on a repeat basis, where the customer lifetime value, the average customer value of a Slack subscriber is actually pretty like ludicrously high. To be completely honest, it's at least $5 or $10 a month per user, which is just obscene. So that means their annual value is something like $60. But you can ask Bunny here, how many Prime energy drinks do you buy per year, and how many Feastables chocolate bars do you think you'll buy per year?
Yeah, if you can start selling stuff to children, and Bunny's basically a child, that's going to be your target market. Bunny, would you what would you say your buys are?
Okay, real quick. I don't think anyone is like, dude, if my son was shilling me a Mr. Beast sales force, I'd be like, what the hell is he talking about? Right? Dude, like, I feel like the highest, like the high majority of marketing appeal for Feastables comes from kids being like able to say these nuts, right? Like, that's the name of the one flavor of the peanut butter candy bar. It's literally called These
These
nuts,
nuts.
right? I don't like the high value approach is insane to me. That's an insane opinion, Spencer. Like, there's no way that would be a better avenue.
And I think
Even watch. It's just like a free pass for him to say these nuts, right? Like, where he doesn't get in trouble. Like, I don't know.
I want to go on record real quick. We can hear from Kicks in a second. This is probably the one time ever on this show I've like really, really strongly agreed with Bunny over Spencer on a take. Like, basically Bunny and Spencer both issued takes on a topic, and I'm all in Bunny's camp here. This is like actually a memorable moment for me.
Well, Kix, you were going to say something, but real quick, the thing I was going to say is, can you imagine your child being like, "Hey, Dad, when you're thinking of enterprise database solutions, what company comes to mind, Dad?" And you're like, "I don't know, Oracle." Yeah, and he's like, "That's true, but there's an up and coming company which is really providing some great open source database offerings, which has been powering some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies, Dad. And so you should go to your company and talk to them about that." That would be
Mr. Beast database.
Yeah, you could just see it. Like, Bunny's kid pulling up on him being like, "Dad, I have an extensive list of friends and potential contacts in Roblox, and the only way to properly manage these is with Mr. Beast database. It's one of the leading premier SaaS solutions that all kids are using in our virtual world." It sounds like a buy to me.
Absolutely hilarious. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to discuss today on the show the continued NFT market dip. We're going to look for any possible buy opportunities. We're going to discuss the recent exodus of Web3 gaming developers and the $100 million Ethereum whale waking up after 8 years. I saw a DGOD holder post like the screenshot of that whale moving, the transaction of him moving the ETH. And he just like wrote, he's going to sweep DGODs. That would be hilarious if someone that's been like, the ETH hasn't been moved for 10 years and the dude just takes a bong rips like, all right, time to sweep some DGODs here. But anyway, real quick, ladies and gentlemen, just want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's show, Phantom Wallet, the official wallet partner of BoDoggos and the Nifty. Phantom is, of course, the leading wallet on Solana, bringing its millions of users a superior user experience and NFT features to both Ethereum and Polygon. With Phantom, it's very easy to view your NFTs across all these networks and manage them in one convenient wallet. You no longer need to suffer from constantly switching around wallets. If you have BoDoggos, you don't have to switch between your wallets for BoDoggos. All of them can live in Phantom Wallet, and you can take advantage of Phantom's features. You can use the browser extension or the world-class apps for both iOS and Android and access your wallet from anywhere. You can also search and pin your NFTs and hide spam to keep your collection organized. Because of the incredible UI, you don't have to deal with the hassle of multiple seed phrases. Also, you can just import your seed phrase to Phantom. So go and import your Ethereum seed phrase to Phantom. The upgrade is simple. Go to phantom.app, install Phantom Wallet, and import your existing Ethereum seed phrase. It's that simple. Shout out to Phantom, the official wallet partner of BoDoggos and the Nifty. We got the weather report here on deck. Signal, please take it away.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but if I had a wallet that had been dormant for 8 years, good luck remembering that password, because I would not have remembered it. And this was probably before like password managers. So, kudos to the guy for remembering the password after 8 years. But on to market volume and what's been going on. Today is Wednesday, the 19th of July. Total market volume coming in at 20 million. Blur down at 11.3. OpenSea now in the 2.8 range, which is pretty low. Onto leaders, not too much change, but Apes at 33.2, Mutants just shy of 6 ETH, hanging out at 4.9, while Punks are sub 50 at 49.8. You got DGODs coming down from that big sweep last week there at 8.6. Azuki now in a 5 ETH range at 5.3. That's quite a fall. Captains holding steady at 6.1, and Pudgies as well, steady at 3.8. Over the past 24 hours, well, despite top PFP seeing huge losses over on the ETH side, Polygon's new mint Pluto, where it was a 2x win for minters overnight after the Polygon team invested and bought into their collection as well. Pluto is up from 0.08 up to 0.16. Good old fashioned sniping and collecting there, not having to do any sort of that gas war stuff. Over in the fashion industry, Louis Vuitton has released its first digital collection that has been designed by the new menswear creative director Pharrell. The exclusive bag is going to be claimable in January for people, and unlike the treasure trunks from previously before, this collectible is actually going to be tradable on secondary, but hasn't had much action yet. Following last week's news of Sega's departure from Web3, we're seeing even more Web3 games recently leave the space, including Homer Games, Sony, and Neopets. Will we see more gaming companies come in, or will there be more of an exodus as we go into these last 6 months? And then lastly, we're talking about it earlier, but 116 million worth of ETH was moved from a wallet which was dormant for 8 years over to Kraken. The person who was in control of that wallet moved 116 million in a single transaction. Apparently not even a test, just boom, 116 off it goes. On to crypto, BTC at 30k, ETH at 1900, Solana at 26.4, and Ape at 2. Pretty steady over there. And that is all for the weather report. Back to you, folks.
Fantastic weather report as usual, Signal. Some updates from the Nifty Daily Digest. If you go to the nifty.com and register your email, that's how you'll get access to the newsletter. That's also how you'll get access to the free NFTs that we drop on this show almost every single day, including today. So make sure you go to the nifty.com and create an account. First story, Proof released a teaser for Grails Season 4. This is the popular mint mechanic where pass holders have 1 week to select an artwork, each created by a different mystery artist, and the artist names are not revealed until after the selection process ends. If I could weigh in on this, I've always thought that this was cool and fun, and it's great to see the Proof ecosystem continuing to do it. A second story, Futureverse, a metaverse startup formed from the merger of 11 firms, has raised, Clemente, is this accurate?
Yeah.
Wow. $54 million fundraise in a Series A round, aiming to blend AI and blockchain to shape the metaverse experience. Damn.
You know what's even more interesting about that, Pio? It's a merger of 8 companies. How do you even pull that off?
What you do is you let me explain real quick. You screw over everybody in the process. You roll that up into a singular company, and then you you just do a classic roll up, and bada bing, bada boom. You got a bunch of entities there, which are at least 20% as good as they were when they were existing on their own. And if you do greater than 5, that means you have greater than 100% of the value there. So it's pretty good.
There you go. Well, that is a monster fundraise. That's crazy. Spencer, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, right? It's impressive that they were able to raise that amount of money in this market. Am I super bullish on it? I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think Nick's actually spot on here, right? Like, how do you do that? Well, you get someone to give you a lot of money at a very high valuation, and then you go and you use your equity at that high valuation to go buy other companies, right? I think we will see more of these sort of SPAC mergery type plays, right? Which is kind of what this is, although they didn't even really maybe buy some of these companies. I've heard this pitched as like a real competitor to other side. I'm a little skeptical about it, but what was really shocking to me was how little this announcement moved price yesterday on any of the related collections, right? You've got like the Fluff World collection, you've got like Cool Cats heavily involved, but also like this has kind of been known, right? Like I thought they announced. Am I wrong in thinking they made part of this announcement before? Like
they keep coming out with these announcements. I mean, if they use the money to buy some of these companies, then they definitely. I don't know.
Is this news?
Well, yeah, it came out in Bloomberg yesterday, and then now I guess it became available via TechCrunch or something like that. But yeah, it is news. they had this roll up before. A lot of the primary people that were excited about this were those with the whatever the bunny project is,
Future Fluff World.
Fluff World, and then the like were a bunch of Cool Cats people being like, yeah, here's to our new overlords, basically. I haven't received a single apology from anybody in the Cool Cats community for posting about that, but you know, I don't need one. Yeah, it's all good.
Anyway, so we'll dive in here. Here's a quick hitter from Clemente. So we talked about this earlier. 61,000 ETH, roughly 116 million bucks in a dormant wallet, was moved after 8 years of inactivity. The latest update was that they sent the ETH to Kraken, although people are unsure whether this is to stake the ETH or sell it off. I don't know. What do you guys make of the story? Like, how much do we care about, dormant crypto moving wallet stories? I mean, they are interesting. It definitely is interesting. Sig?
The bit that got me was a single transaction. I'm just like,
I
can't even send 1 ETH without doing a test. And this person's just like 116 million. Boop,
Oh
bleep. Like, I mean, look, it's interesting timing. Obviously got ETHCC happening right now as well. Vitalik is speaking at the conference. Don't know if that has anything to do with it. It's very difficult to correlate these movements in wallets to a single event or to something that's going on. These stories come up from time to time, but they don't really move the market or anything. I feel like it's a bit of a nothing burger, but it's always interesting when these stories come up.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. People just love that headline. $100 million. I mean, it's a good headline. $100 million of dormant ETH moves for the first time in 9 years or what? Like, that's a pretty good headline right there. Kicks?
I don't know. I just feel like, I mean, first of all, I never would have diamond handed it that long. So I wouldn't be this person. But if I was this person, I feel like I wouldn't send all 100 million A, in one transaction, like Signal said, but B, to like one exchange. I feel like, even if I was doing, the stake to earn, I would do it across multiple. I would like de-risk across multiple offerings. Who knows? Maybe they're selling it all and they're going to get some treasury bills or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it is just wild, interesting stories. I mean, that person bought it at the ICO of ETH.
Yeah, basically, yeah,
right around then, and just didn't touch it. Just never touched it. I would have to think that this is a person that probably this is like one of their 8 wallets. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, is that this person has a shit ton of ETH and a shit ton of money. And this is just one of their many wallets that they loaded up in 2016.
Yeah, you got to think if they put $25,000 in or something like that, an amount of money that's obviously significant, but at the same time, to somebody that has a relatively high net worth, not that big of an investment, they got a lot of ETH for that if they bought it extremely early on. They
probably
got
Chamath. See if Chamath like rolls a SPAC up in the next month or two, and then you'll know it's him for sure.
There you go. And I guess it would probably actually be more than 25,000. Look, Easy posted a tweet. It was a visual that showed that in the last 30 days, over 92% of ETH NFT wallets have a realized or unrealized loss of over 1 Ethereum. I had said on the show the other day that I felt like there was a greater than 75% chance that if you bought any NFT right now, the price would go down. And I think I was like trying to be nice and almost trying to be like politically correct by saying that, but I guess I was wrong. The correct answer was there's a 99.9% chance that if you buy an NFT, the price goes down. Because this is 92% have a loss of over 1 ETH. So a $2,000 loss if you bought an NFT in the past 30 days. That's going to attract new investors. Easy, what do you make of this graphic? This is pretty gnarly, right?
It's wild. I mean, it's not that surprising, to be honest. You look at the market right now, we're definitely in this like depression and boredom phase. I think as far as like the market goes, you're seeing a lot of people actually kind of tap out right now, which is not surprising at all.
Well, it's pretty easy to tap out if you buy something, and what that means is you're down $2,000.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like that's I mean, if I'm buying it and it immediately goes to zero, I'm definitely not having a good time. That's for sure. But I still look at something like this and it's like, you see a lot of people shifting over to coins. You see a lot of people shifting over to airdrop farming, a lot of people shifting over to Solana DeFi. And I just think people right now are just kind of trying to capitalize on the tokens themselves. And that's the big move. Like, people are looking for higher upside on the underlying token, which is kind of pushing them away from the NFT space for this kind of cycle. It's also crazy because you see a lot of people who are basically just like, NFTs are never coming back. These things are completely dead. All these comments on it. But at the same time, like, we've only seen one cycle, and it was the mania phase. And like, this really, like, the feeling I'm getting right now is exactly what 17 and 18 felt like, when a lot of people were leaving right before DeFi summer on ETH, which was one of the biggest kind of runs. And we actually saw gambling tokens ramp really hard. On my 5 p.m. show, we had Elio Trades on, and he was talking about this too. Because on Sol, you're seeing a bunch of gambling tokens run with Sol Casino. We're seeing the Rollbit token up 600%. And these things kind of like are currently showing a cycle, much like what we saw last time.
So I did the math the other day on my CryptoPunk trade, which we've often hailed as a great trade.
Well, it was for a period of time.
Yeah, I could have just bought ETH, basically, would have been the better trade ultimately. And I wonder to some large degree whether or not that really is the trade for most of these things. And NFTs, the name of the game is, how do I get people to give me their crypto for nothing, basically? And then hold on to that crypto because that's going to appreciate more significantly. It's tough in the NFT space. And on the losses front, I was looking at my hot wallet NFTs, and it's just bad. Like, it's ugly what's going on in that wallet. And I easily probably spent thousands of dollars just into nowhere, basically, with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And with Azuki going down right now, I think as that's gone, so has most of the market. And all of the pumps that we've discussed have inevitably disappeared, and they've been incredibly short-lived on pretty much every single project. Like, I can't think of any project which is, maybe DGods is the only one that has sustained at this moment in time during this entire bear market. We see temporary momentum. Like, Pudgy the other day was above 4, heads to like 4.5 or something like that. Boom, immediately back down to 3.8 or wherever it is. You have Moonbirds was like, there was a moment where everyone's like, oh, wow, I guess this is a great thing. Pumps up to 2 ETH from like 1.3 it hit. It's now back down to 1.56. Now, it's not as low as it was, but like all of these things, like the chart of all of them follows the exact same path. It's like smaller spike, lower lows, smaller spike, lower lows, basically. And that's every single NFT chart on ETH and Solana. It's everywhere that you look. And so that's a difficult market to trade in. Basically, the only way that you make money is you need to be buying right before the news happens and sell into that
immediately.
news.
Like,
yeah. That's the only way that it works right now. I love having the CryptoPunk exposure for the whenever the bull market returns. But yeah, it would have been better for me just to have bought the ETH. And right now, a lot of my purchases are going to tokens over NFTs, just because for whatever reason, I feel more secure in those than I do with.
Well, what do you mean? What, for whatever reason? I mean, it's orders of magnitude less risky to buy like Bitcoin or Ethereum versus
because it's immediately liquid on most of them, and also the price usually. Well, there's equal price volatility that occurs, but over time, like it doesn't. It's not as bad as the NFTs. Also, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Spencer, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, look, right? Like, the question to me is, I think it gets increasingly hard to buy NFTs as close as we get to the Blur airdrop. And the question is there a lot of sideline liquidity that's just like, hey, NFTs are untouchable until the second Blur airdrop because everyone's just going to dump and there's going to be this huge liquidity crunch? I think that's a reasonable thesis to have, right? The counter argument could be, okay, well, actually right now, because everyone's so trepidatious, NFTs are like way oversold, and therefore you should be like like now is the time to buy, because after the second Blur airdrop, there may be all this sideline liquidity that comes back in and buys them, right? Like those are kind of the two things that I'm thinking. I think the other sentiment that I'm seeing increasingly is just people who are like really like focused on where they think the price of or they think the price of ETH is going. So like if you think ETH is going to have a huge swing, which, you know, ETH or Bitcoin or whatever you think, right? Like that could also, you know, people might sell off NFTs to go there. And so like if the argument is focus is just increasingly shifting off NFTs, I would say, and you can disagree with this obviously, but I would say that like that means that there's got to be some point in which it's overcompensated, where there's like too little attention on NFTs. And that's when there's a lot of opportunities in the market, right? And so when do you think that moment happens? And do you think that moment happens at all, right? I'm not a believer at all that NFTs are gone or dead. I could be a believer that certain projects are gone or dead, but what's going on right now is this just blanket statements about all of the collections. And so some of them have to be wrong, right? Maybe not. Maybe I'm a fool, right? But I think the idea here is like what you should be doing now is just evaluating what collections could not be dead in the next cycle. And then when the whole market sells off, they're probably oversold.
I love it. And I should just go on record and make sure that I communicate this. Every time people just say terrible takes that's like, you know, literally Bitcoin is going to go to zero. Ethereum is going to go to zero. All of crypto is a scam, like all these terrible takes. And that's what these NFT takes are. Does that mean that random NFT collection XYZ is going to ever pump again? Absolutely not, right? But it does mean that the market for NFTs is going to exist. I mean, I brought this up on the show before. I was in a meeting with one of our investors who's been a crypto, you know, they've been investing in crypto companies, crypto startups for, I think, probably like at least 10 years or something like that. Like they were early on some really big names. And he just like let out a little bit of like a half sigh and like a little smirk. And he was just like, we have the same conversation every 3 years. And it's just so true. And I've been saying this for a long time. The people that are active participants in this market, the people that are posting on Twitter, the people that are buying and selling NFTs and crypto tokens, 90+% of them don't understand what's going on at all. They're literally just buying random stuff casino style to try to make more fiat currency profits and probably losing money in the process. You see it every time there's a major pullback. You'll see people say, this is all just a casino. This is all a scam. There's no point to this, blah, blah, blah. They have no clue which way is up. And that's why, even though they're an early adopter in the sense that they're buying and selling crypto and NFT assets left and right, they don't end up rich on the other end. You know, you have to actually know what the hell is going on to end up rich. Kix, it looks like you want to add something.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're definitely in like the depression phase, and I think that there's just so much opportunity, and we're so early in terms of like some of these mechanics. I frankly just think that there's not any significant amount of new money coming in, and the existing money is just like bored, and or at least a lot of it's bored and burnt out on just like the same thing over and over and over again without like any innovation. Eventually it gets so boring that you can't even the best shillers can't even attach like an interesting narrative to it. You know, like when I just think about like over the last like year, what are the most interesting things that like came out via NFTs, right? And I still think it's like what Jack Butcher did with like Opepin and checks, like that was actually new and innovative. And what the punks, I always butcher the name, 6159 or whatever, did with seize the memes, you know what I mean? And that like auction kind of like style, and the more that you hold and stuff like that, those were actually like trying different things and like trying different applications. And I just think that in the bear market, what you're going to see is it's going to force people to actually try some like interesting things out. Like one of the things I was thinking about is just that we're like still stuck to this like 8 to 10K fixed supply PFP kind of meta, right? And there's so many other things that you can potentially do with it. Because one of the biggest issues is like, why can't we get more people buying NFTs? Well, it's like on a certain project, if like 10 new buyers want to come in, the floor price goes from a half an ETH to an ETH. It's just, and that's what caused the bull run to be so profitable, because it's such an liquid constrained supply that any amount of new people that want to come in just sends it to the moon. But like in 3 years from now, that model may be considered like super archaic. There may be a completely new model that is used for, you know, digital identities. But I think it's exciting because I think that once we get down to like this level, there's less noise of bullshit, and it's easier to find the signal of projects doing actually, interesting things. So I think that it's going to be, I'm hoping that like in the next 6 months, there's going to be some really cool new things that come out that feel different, that feel innovative, that aren't just copy paste formats that we've seen a million times. Because I was one of the biggest traders in 2021. And then I slowed down in 2022 because I was, running my own businesses, but I still traded pretty frequently. You know what I mean? Like in August, I bought Gaku, bought a bunch of those, right? In November, I bought Trump NFTs. There was stuff that I was still buying. Dude, like other than vessels, I don't think I've made a serious NFT buy in like 3 months. I'm being dead serious. And it's not because I'm not bullish on NFTs. I'm here full time in the space. It's just that there's nothing that really can get me excited. And, I'm just going to continue to sit in my hands until that happens. But I am betting my career that there will be lots of exciting things to happen in the future. It's not surprising to me that we're in this kind of depression phase when just nothing different's happening than from 2021. Like the exact same things that we were trading in 2021 are still the exact same things that we are trading and launching in 2023 and trying to make them seem exciting when they're just not.
And you pair that with where we're at in the cycle. I want to talk, since you're a CEO of a gaming NFT business, I want to talk about the large amount of games that are leaving to Web3. I'd also love to hear the way Spencer thinks about investing in gaming entities, from an institutional perspective. But Kix, it sounds like Sega left. I didn't even know that they were in, quite frankly.
Yeah, they didn't have like a project live. I guess just like during the NFT gaming bull run, they said that they were working on a game in the NFT space. And basically the CEO comes out and said they've canned that game because they think Play to Earn is dead or something like that. But like external third parties that license their IP may still be doing stuff in Web3. So that's what he said. And then recently over the past week, Homa Games, which came in and was supposed to be like a really big mobile gaming company, and they've had 150 million downloads this year, and they made a splash into Web3. They've canned their Web3 project. So that news released over the past couple of days. And then Neopets said that they're leaving. But the Sega thing, maybe you can be whatever about, but like Homa Games, I never heard about them before they launched a Web3 project. And like Neopets, that thing's been dead and resurrected like 100 times. I would be much more concerned if like EVE Online, right? EVE Online got $40 million to build a Web3 AAA game, right? If they were pulling the plug on that project, that's way more concerning than some of these other projects. Like I didn't know this fact, but Neopets, they raised $4 million to build a game in Web3. They also did a Solana mint. They were going to try to mint like 20,000 NFTs, couldn't sell it, cut it to 10,000, couldn't sell it, cut it to 4,500. Finally, we're able to sell out. But then I found a Reddit article saying that these guys did a NFT or crypto thing even before that in like 2018 or 2017. So these guys just come back and just rake off some money off the top and then never launch everything every couple of years. And I think that's the thing is like, you probably don't want to be excited about Neopets. Let's be honest. Like if they haven't been able to build an interesting game since their original game 20 years ago.
Sounds like they haven't tried.
Yeah. It sounds like basically their company probably went bankrupt and some company probably bought the IP. You know what I mean? And they're just milking the IP without actually ever trying to build Neopets again. But I mean, I think the reality of the situation is that the companies that are going to do the most interesting things with Web3 games are probably going to be the native companies. It's going to be Axie Infinity. It's not going to be Sony. It's not going to be Sega, right?
At least at first.
Yes, the other people will create the playbook, and then the big players will come in and copy the proven to work playbook, right? And that happens in all industries. So, some people are seeing these news and like, oh man, this is like, I think it's just reality of like a lot of these projects just came in when the sun was out and are leaving when there's a thunderstorm. You know what I mean? And I think if anything, you should just continue to look at the companies that are like native to the space and are building in this space. Once again, like Axie Infinity. With as much shit as they get, they were the #1 game in Web3. Oh, yeah. Not only that, their secondary volume is still higher than Bored Ape Yacht Club to this day. Still higher than Bored Ape Yacht Club. Their secondary volume, #1 in the entire NFT space. And they're still here building, working on like totally new and novel things. And if you had gotten into them in like 2020 when they were first starting out, they were just
or like before,
they were a small indie studio. just like building and growing. Though these are the kind of projects that you want to be looking for when we're going into the next NFT gaming cycle. You don't want to be looking at Neopets.
Well, I mean, that was incredibly well put, Kix. No surprise, given you are the CEO of Crypto Raiders Gaming Studio. Spencer, you know, when I kind of think about the way I see you operate your fund, right, it seems like the most of your exposure, if not all of your exposure, is to what I would call extremely high-end digital collectibles, right? So it's not the fine art side, right? You're not buying a bunch of 101s off of super rare. I don't even think you're buying necessarily like art blocks, even though it is the fine art side, but more kind of collectible in the sense that there's like thousands of them and they are in individual collections. But are you interested in gaming? Are you kind of sticking to that high-end collectibles corner of the market?
Yeah, I mean, I think gaming is really interesting. And I think it's crazy to me, like, you can't have a gaming discussion in Web3 without talking about Animoca, right? Like,
sure,
if Animoca leaves the space, okay, we have a problem, right? Like, oh yeah, you know, and this is what do you think is going to happen? Is like the bet here is that increasingly new developers are using Web3 as interesting financing mechanisms. Like, this has always been my take on NFTs. NFTs are great collectibles, but they're really interesting financing mechanisms to build a company, right? And so, you know, does having tradable assets in a game change the game economy, right? Like, that's one thing. That's kind of its own separate question. But really, where this is interesting is like, how do you own assets that like have some reflection on the game, and who's actually building something that could be AAA, right? Like, Animoca has by far the most titles under it of something interesting. Now, the challenge and the bridge here is that NFTs exist in a lot of different ways, right? And so there's NFTs that we talk about as like speculative financial assets, and there's NFTs that are just like, you know, interesting use cases for having on-chain technology that like probably are not designed to have secondary price, market, or volume, right? And so, you know, Axie is a good use case of it did really well in the last cycle, had all this volume, et cetera, but
made
part
a
of the
mistake.
reason that it's fallen off now is because the financialization of the assets meant that as soon as it stopped like printing money for you for playing, like people stopped playing, right? So my take has always been that we're in this like interesting phase where people are just going to try stuff. And like, what you really need is you need the next Overwatch. You need the next Fortnite. You need the next League of Legends, something like that. StarCraft. Like, there are not that many games that are very good ever, right? Like, if you think about, you know, I always think about this, right? Like, Nintendo Switch, right? How many games does Nintendo have, right? Between Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, Mario Party, Legend of Zelda, Pokemon, that's like 99% of all playtime on the Nintendo Switch. There's hundreds of other titles, but that's 99% of playtime, right? So we're just not yet at a stage where people have figured out the right way to include NFTs in their product. I think it will happen. I would love to have good NFT game thesis exposure, but I think I've not been sold yet on the idea that buying NFTs is the best exposure to the idea that NFTs will ultimately play a big role in games. But I do think that whoever really figures that out well has a huge leg up on the competition. But the real golden goose here and the hard thing, and this is where like I'm not, you know, diligencing video game investments, right? That's not what I do professionally. And so this is like, it's tough to say who's going to build a good game. It's kind of like Hollywood movies, right? Like, who's going to make a good movie? Everyone's going to come out, oh, I got whatever, right? Like, you know, at the end of the day, it's and even the best people at it miss 90% of the time, right? So like, if you're not building a dedicated, diversified portfolio with the sole thesis of hitting that one game win, it's kind of hard. That being said, I'm very interested to see, you know, like Yuga Labs, for example, what they're doing. You know, they're having this sort of premium collectible, this coin in market, and they're trying to do a game ecosystem play. I don't know how that will play out. I have some skepticisms. I'm excited for Legends of Mara. I don't think heavy metal is hitting for me the way that it could, but like, they're trying stuff, and they're trying stuff with a lot of resources, and it's high budget, right? Like, this is where we're at in the space today. We are in the early innings. We are 2 years into NFTs being like a real serious asset class that people are like involved with. And like, obviously we don't know the best way to use them yet. Think about like the early 2000s for tech, right?
Yeah.
How many companies went public with just a domain name, right?
Literally.
Like literally, right? And so like, I don't know, like,
yeah,
I don't know. That's kind of my rant about where we're at. But
no,
I think it's really tough to trade video game assets as NFTs.
It's a great rant. And then one other, you know, analogy I would make, you brought up the idea of it being, you know, fundraising for movies, for example. Like, obviously a lot of people say that they can make movies, but how many of those movies end up being hit movies, and how many movies end up losing money? And the answer is quite a few, especially nowadays where people aren't going to the movie theater as much. That's why you just see them pumping out existing IP like Spider-Man, Marvel, now Barbie, just pumping out IP IP that they know is going to sell no matter what, because they need that sure thing. Another analogy I think would be appropriate would be like professional sports, you know, teams drafting players. These are the best scouts in the world, the best general managers in the world, the top people in their profession. And yet 90% of draft picks don't end up having long careers, right? So it's like at the end of the day, it's just so hard to do. And that's kind of what venture capital looks like. And that's what the NFT space looks like. Also, during my rant of how I said that people will say that this stuff is all BS, you know, and then obviously it ends up coming back. But times like right now, people say it's BS. Someone in the comments said that ordinals was just done. And it's like, that's hilarious to me. The NFT protocol built on Bitcoin's layer 1 is going to be done. Oh, okay. Thanks for letting me know, buddy. I'll see you in a couple of years. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go off on my day now, understanding that ordinals is not going to work.
Pia, you know why everyone's so mad? It's because if on January 1st you bought ETH, you're up 50%. If you bought a Bored Ape, you're up like 10%. And if you just bought fucking Carvana stock, you're up 10x.
Carvana. Go ahead.
Is mad. All you had to do was fucking buy Carvana stock this year.
I would have never bought Carvana stock in a million years is the thing. It's just not something I could have bought ever. So it is what it is. But I wish I bought more Facebook stock. I bought Facebook stock, but not that much. Spencer, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is the same thing though, right? With ordinals, it's like, okay, clearly there will be ordinals in the next cycle, but picking what to buy right now that's speculating on that thesis is really fucking hard, right?
Oh,
same thing.
Absolutely.
Like,
I'm not
clearly
talking about, like,
there will be video games in the future that are big that have NFTs in them.
Yeah.
You can be, and like this is, you know, I had a friend too who like, they were like, oh my God, like 2016, I knew NFTs were in the future and I loaded up on CryptoKitties, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
the thing, right? You know, it wasn't obvious that you should have bought punks then. And so I think this is where like when you're trading crypto and you're trading NFTs and you're in this market, what you need to do is say, here is the long-term thesis. My long-term thesis is, I think, you know, video games will have NFTs. I think ordinals will have NFTs. I think PFPs will be big. Pick whatever is most compelling to you in that thesis. And then what you should spend most of your time doing is looking for what is the best exposure to that specific thesis, right? And that's the hardest part, right? And in some theses, it's not obvious always that there is a best exposure in the market right now, right? So you might say, so like for me, it's like, I want to say, okay, I think there's a specific thesis that I really like. I have it. I think it makes sense to me. And I see a way to get obvious exposure to it. And those two both have to be true, because you can fall in love with a thesis and then find no way to get exposure. And I think that's what a lot of the ordinals market is today. Is like, and I could be wrong, right? But I just don't see an obvious way to get exposures to ordinal being big based on the current ordinals assets, right?
I mean, if I'm not saying random ass ordinals project by random ass individual human being is going to be big, right? But the ordinals protocol, layer 1 Bitcoin NFTs. Yeah. I mean, come on now, guys, come on. Look, we got to move on here. Or Kicks, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Spencer, like, you know, I own like one of the like first 5K inscription. We're only gonna be a hot deal on this thing, but I mean, it's super historic. You got to think, like, you know, if one day there's like 10 billion ordinals, like, you know, you could have one that was one of the first 5,000 ever made. Imagine having one of the first 5,000 Fords that came off the, you know, old assembly line.
Do you know about the NFT collection called the Transition? I think that's what it's called. There's an NFT 10K, or it was maybe 1K, 10K collection that minted. There was one that was the last block on proof of work Ethereum, and there was one that was the first block of proof of stake Ethereum. Yeah. And they're both worth fuck all right now.
But this one is truly historic. I mean, you got to think, if you're a digital, digital archaeologist 1,000 years from now, you're gonna want one of these.
So, ladies, how much do you want for that, man? Like, I'm becoming more interested by the minute.
From what I bought in May, you know, I'm a happy camper, dude. Maybe even just give me 50% gain, dude. I'm down with that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is like a little bit of an inside joke here at the Nifty. In our internal meetings, whenever we talk about like ordinals and like Satoshis, we just always have fun. One of my favorite aspects that's come out of ordinals is the rare sat, you know, the salesman of rare sats, like people telling you why the sat is worth so much money. And I'm not saying that it's completely, you know, total bullshit, but I do think it's really funny when it's like, no, you don't understand. This is the Satoshi that,
Pio,
you know,
you're not saying that, but I'm saying it's complete and utter bullshit. And I'm willing to die on that hill.
it's one of the fun, like we make jokes about it in internal meetings anytime it comes up. It's pretty damn funny.
It's like trying to sell someone $1 for $2 because like the dollar has like 2 9s sequentially in like its ID. You know what I mean?
Although you know, if you have the star next to the dollar in the serial number, that actually means they pulled it off the conveyor belt, and those are worth more money. But I will say, my current thinking is that if you did want exposure to this, the sats will be rare. Ordinals will be big in the future. I actually think figuring out what you think a rare sat is and buying a rare sat is likely a better play than buying anything with the thesis of what's inscribed on it currently.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few options for things that are inscribed right now. Signal, do you want to add something there?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, on the gaming side of things, like, maybe it's being like oversimplified, but at the end of the day, for a game to break out, it has to be fun, because like I can't ask a friend to come and play to come and play heavy metal, asking them to pay however much it is to get into the game if the game is just simply not fun. And I just think like sometimes in trying to well, for me at least, trying to analyze like what is the thesis and what's going to hit in gaming, it's just a question of, well, what am I hearing from everybody else that's saying this is a really fun game? And we saw that with Dookie Dash. It was just a fun game loop of going through the sewer. Like Spencer, you absolutely loved it. Easy was talking about it as well, and it just had that fun momentum. And sometimes I think like with gaming, people are perhaps like trying to assess it under the same constraints that you would do a PFP collection. Like you said, Spencer, you're in CryptoKitties, but you didn't get CryptoPunks at that time. And it's just like, well, yeah, why would you pick up a random picture of a hoodie or of a zombie or an alien at the time versus what was being talked about as a fun game?
Yeah, but and you know, sort of to your point, Signal, right? Like I FUD heavy metal a lot, but I don't think that that's because heavy metal is like necessarily like a terrible idea for them to have done. I think they're picking different styles of games and executing each of them. It seems to me like Legends of Mara has a lot more development as like a bigger game, right? Like we've been like the whole heavy metal arc is them trying like shitty like phone games, basically, right? Like these are all like really like simple, like repetitive games. And that's like, and I think someone should try NFTs in the context of simple repetitive games, right? If you'd asked me a few months ago, I would have said that was probably going to be like Limit Break, but you know, it came out first from heavy metal. I think Legends of Mara is meant to be more of like a standalone, like bigger title, and that's going to be interesting. But it's also like it's interesting to see, right? Like our board, like, do you think owning a Bored Ape is a play on Yuga's ability to execute video games? Is owning an Other D to play on it? Like, how do you get the exposure to the success of it? And also, like, Signal, to your point, right? Like, what is success of a game, right? You know, it's has to be fun to play, but also like the community that builds around it, or the narrative, like you have to feel like you're part of something, right? Most of it, playing games isn't just about the strategy you're sitting down and winning, right? That if that was the case, then there would be a lot more attrition from games because the average, like, you know, 50% of people don't win, right? And so like what really games are about at the end of the day, the stickiest games, if you look, they have a culture around them, they have a community around them, they have something that's like interesting. I think that's where like Dookie Dash hit really well. People were posting fun clips, right? There was like a competitive nature, you know. There was one morning where everyone on the show came on. They're like, all right, well, what was your score? What was your score? And it wasn't even, did you play? It was, what was your score? Because everyone played and you knew everyone played, because how could you be in the space and not have at least played one run of Dookie Dash, right? And so like that was a successful cultural phenomenon moment. I don't think, you know, I mean, heavy metal has hit that same, but it's not like an unreasonable guess that they should have tried it, right? Like this is where also, you know, building one game and having risk to one thing, you know, is different than backing something that's like a studio, right? You know, I don't know. There's just a lot of different stuff going on here.
Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff. And also it's like, it's not the company that has the deepest pockets that will necessarily win. When you're talking about the movie, like the movie analogy, how many blockbuster summer films have you gone to see and you're like, that was a waste of my life. I just had 2-3 hours where this was, you know, the film that spent the most money, and yet it was a huge flop. And so it's not even like a question of, okay, I don't know if Yuga is the one that has the deepest pockets, but let's say they are, that they're necessarily going to win. But what I do like about what Yuga is doing, saying what you were saying, Spencer, is that they're bringing out these test games where they're seeing, okay, Dookie does well, Heavy Metal maybe not, and then Legends of Mara, wait and see. And I would rather place my bet on a company like that than place my bet on a company that, like you're saying, just has that one game and will it hit and get to the App Store.
Signal, I love that movie analogy, right? Because when you look at what they do with movies now, to combat what you're talking about, because back in the day, you could spend a lot of money on a movie and it wouldn't do well because it was a bad movie. But now what you can do is you can make a Marvel movie or a DC movie, and no matter what, it's a bad movie, but no matter what, it makes a lot of money, right? So you can make these bad comic book movies. I mean, I thought I would get more of a response from you guys. You guys are nodding in agreement. I'm dumping on superhero movies right now, and everybody loves superhero movies.
They're actually backtracking. So I saw that Disney are actually going to stop using their best known IP and actually try and put out more original content, because they're saying that people are getting so used to The Little Mermaid, for example, coming out all the time, that now they're just like, okay, well, if we bring out another Little Mermaid in 2-3 years, it's not going to make the same money. Yeah, thanks Clemente for putting that up. So yeah, they need to have more original content, but more original content means higher risk. They could make a loss. Same in gaming.
A great example of this too, right? Like if you think about what are like the trading card games, for example, that come to mind, right? One of the biggest grossing trading card games is Pokemon. Pokemon trading card game is almost unplayable. It's so I cannot stress to you how bad of a game design Pokemon the game is. Video game one is okay. The game mechanics are pretty okay, but the trading card game is truly unplayable. But what's the best trading card game to come out in the last couple of years was Flesh and Blood, right? And you may or may not have heard of that, but that's okay because it's in a very specific thing. And so even these seemingly these are both trading cards that you buy in a pack that are trading card games, but the thesis behind them is so wildly different. One is literally okay, this is an IP that I like and I want to collect, and this is mostly a collectible. Whereas Flesh and Blood, if you are not playing the game, you likely don't own the cards, right? You own the cards to play that game, and it's a well-designed game, but there's an entire huge community and an entire market and ecosystem behind that game. Just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean that it's not big, and it's because it's this huge, smaller demographic. And so this is where NFTs can succeed through multiple paths, right? You can succeed as Flesh and Blood, or you can succeed as Pokemon. I think it was much easier to build an IP in a nascent space than it was to build a successful game. But in the next inning, this becomes much harder, right? This is where this next cycle and this next inning, I think the good game matters a lot more, right? You don't see new trading card games coming out. They're hey, we're IP based, right? That's owned by Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, right? So if you want to come out with a game trumping that IP, almost impossible. How are you going to win against Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon in the trading card game? You have to do it by having a better game, right? And so this is where the head start the NFT companies have now on people knowing about them, the cultural phenomena of Bored Apes. Everybody knows about Bored Apes. People who don't even trade NFT knows about Bored Apes, right? You're not trying to flip that. You have to beat Bored Apes on a different axis, and that axis has, I think, one of the big arguments about that axis has to be quality of thing you put out.
I thought that was brilliant, Spencer. Love hearing a little Spencer rant right there. I also want to point out one of our commenters had a very insightful take. He said Blur is responsible for the writer and actor strike over in Hollywood. Couldn't agree more. Blame Blur when in doubt. Look, before we wrap, we're going to do a fun little segment here, Finding Diamonds in the Rough. If you had to make a pick for a collection that you'd buy during this dip with a 90-day or longer time horizon in mind, which would you buy? We got Oni Force at 0.88 ETH. We got Utes at 1.75 ETH. Man, Utes have been resilient. Lil Pudgies at 0.3 ETH. Other Side Vessels at 0.17 ETH. Clemente threw in Cool Cats at 0.75 ETH. What do you guys think? Oh, and also Clemente brought up the Key by Batstu at 0.13 Ethereum. Very interesting. So that's the Key by Batstu, Oni Force, Utes, Lil Pudgies, Other Side Vessels, or Cool Cats. Easy. Which of these are you buying?
Ooh, that's tough. Utes have the season 2 drop coming out. Vessels have Legends of Mara. My keyboard is one I am actually very interested in, especially with the Opepin pump that's been going on, because that was a allow list given to Opepin holders.
Which collection?
My Keyboard by Batstu, I believe, at 0.13.
Oh, got it. Yep.
So, I mean, I'm still on the Vessel bandwagon, I think is my play here. Just because I think that game's going to be far more interactive. You're going to get a lot more user-generated content. And that's usually what drives the market. When a lot of people keep seeing these things, that's where it becomes more interesting. So my money's probably on Vessels at the moment. I do think you see a pump after Ute Season 2, but Vessels just feel like the most logical play, regardless of market sentiment. We've seen Heavy Metal go 0.4 to 0.7, retrace here back to 0.5. And that's just because Season 1 is winding down, or the first part of this multi-season game is winding down. But I think once Legends of Mara goes live, I become exceptionally interested in like all the components of that, especially right out the gate.
Vessels from Easy. And yeah, Clemente said that these were recommendations from the audience. So that's definitely cool. Thank you. Appreciate everybody listening and giving us these options. Signal, which of those collections, just to refresh your memory, that's the by Batstu, Oni Force, Utes, Lil Pudgies, Other Side Vessels, or Cool Cats?
I would have to choose between Oni Force and Utes, and I would go with the Utes just because we know that Frank is cooking and something is coming. But I'm very surprised that they're at 1.7 even over on Polygon. Yeah, very surprised. So I don't know if they'll be able to break 2 on whatever comes out. I don't know if they'll be able to break 2 and sustain 2. But the fact that they're just ranging in this level in anticipation of what's to come just feels like something new. Something new will come out. And also, I remember, I think it was D Farmer who put out a tweet when they brought out the new branding and how impressed he was by what the team is doing there. I think that's one of their strengths, is they're very good at bringing in new people who see them as innovative within their niche, whether that's marketing, being able to talk about Utes in in a very specific context. I feel like for what it's a PFP, and we know PFPs are struggling, and that team still managed to always get such strong momentum on their big announcements. And that's something that other teams really struggle to do. So I'm going to choose Utes as the play
Utes
there.
from Signal there. Very interesting call. Spencer, I feel like you own nearly every collection here, or is it literally every collection? Do you have the Key by Batstu?
And Key by Batstu. So
do you have Cool Cats?
I personally own one Cool Cat, but the fund doesn't hold Cool Cats.
Got it.
I think so is the question who is most likely to go up in price, or is it what is the highest expected value? I think that I have slightly different answers there. So for me, you got to look at where these collections are. I think the highest upside is probably Vessels, right? Vessels, it wouldn't shock me if they go to an ETH. I'm not saying that I think they're going to an ETH, but their upside is literally 5x their floor right now, right? Whereas if you look at Utes, I agree. I think Utes is the most obviously probably going to go up. I mean, who knows, right? But I would say if I wanted to be the safest bet of something that will likely go up, Utes probably goes closer to 2 with Season 3, right? It's just that feels like a pretty safe bet. But does Utes 5x? Does Utes go to 10 ETH? Probably not, right? Whereas Vessels reasonably could. And so I'm a little bit split between the two of them. Oni Force, I like in general in the long run, Oni Force has held pretty well in this overall market capitulation, Utes have held probably the strongest. Oni Force has held pretty well. Little Pudgies also holding super well. So for long-term holds, I really like Little Pudgies. They're just so cheap right now. Those could, but for Little Pudgies to go up significantly, Big Pudgies also have to go up. And that's just a bigger ask in this market, right? But anytime Little Pudgies are under 10% of a Big Pudgy, they look like a buy. And so it wouldn't shock me if those go to 4, 0.4, 0.5, even 0.7. And that's a team that I think is grinding it out. You have a long-term thesis on, but I don't know that there's huge imminent catalysts there. And so, there's a bunch of good options on this list, but if you want the most high volatility play, I think it's Vessels. The risk with Vessels though, and is just Vessels are we don't know what is the most important thing in Legends of Mara. And there's a lot of shit that could be in Legends of Mara, right? You have all of these partner collections involved with it. You have all the 10 KTF assets, all the tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of 10 KTF assets. And we have these Vessels, if the Vessels aren't, and we have apes and dogs and all the, who knows what's part of Legends of Mara? So like the risk with vessels is that they're just not that big a part of whatever Legends of Mara is. And like they can go to like close to zero. Like it wouldn't shock me if they come out and they're not like a key part. Like there's a lot of vessels. There's 200,000 vessels, right? And so like
you could only told me that before I put 2 ETH in it.
Did you just put 2 ETH in the vessels?
Oh, I'm down 50% already.
Or sorry, 100,000 vessels. Is it 100? No, it's 100.
I thought it was 45,000, but maybe am I totally wrong about that?
So are you just looking at like how many currently exist, or like how many could exist if you bridge other deed to other deed expanded?
I was just looking at how many currently exist.
I'm never buying an NFT again.
Anyway, well, look, Spencer's given us the long and short, but is the answer still vessels, Spencer?
It's probably vessels. I don't know. Like it depends on what you want. It depends on your risk tolerance. Like the vessels.
All right, Kix, what's your answer? Well, actually, I'll let Kix regroup for a moment after he listens
Harry
to Spencer's.
Potter, Obama, Shinu, 10 up 6.
Dude, that's
Oh,
what I was gonna
unironically,
say.
that's the real deal. Wait. Important question, Kix. Is the move Harry Potter, Obama, Sonic Inu 10, or is it Sproto Gremlins?
Dude, I don't even fucking know. Smoking crack on Twitter Spaces, dude, and then they'll figure out which one's the right answer. That's what they did.
Bunny, what's your response for which collection?
No, I think Kix. I mean, if anything, Sproto Gremlins, right? Because anytime Bitcoin moons, Sproto Gremlins moon. It went up to like 70 million yesterday. It's dipped back down to the 60s. I don't know, might be a good spot to buy. I'm with Kix. I wouldn't hold any NFT for that time frame right now. That sounds like
these are 0.66.
people will hate me for this, but this is actually like incredible art. Like this is unique.
It is.
This is unique. This is like there's like a very specific era of like when people first like were like in mass using acid. That this is like very reminiscent. This crack. Yeah, I mean, like this is truly unhinged in a way that like we have not seen in quite a while. But it's actually like artistically like kind of an interesting collection, right? Like the fact that these all work as like images is very, very like.
And then also artistically, the fact that their token is named Harry Potter, Obama, Shinu 10. I may be butchering a little bit, and they made their ticker Bitcoin. Like there's artistic troll to that, and that's all you had to do to make it in July.
Very impressive. Well, we got the answers from everybody on the show, even though Bunny and Kix didn't play the game properly and picked a random other project that wasn't on the list. Bunny, if you had to pick one on the list, Oni Force Youths, Lil Pudgies, Other Side Vessels, Cool Cats, The Key by Batstew, what would you pick?
How long do we have to hold for again?
90 days, 3 months.
90 days. Holy crap. I would probably, dude, season 2 is going to happen. Frank can't delay it long enough. Vessels is going to be too quick. That's going to dump. I guess Little Pudgies. I feel like that's the closest thing to a stable. I'm like not expecting any of these to go up in price over that time frame. I was just like, which one do I think will go down the least?
I agree with this analysis. I would do Little Pudgies.
There you go. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. Wanted to take a minute to thank the sponsor of today's show, Phantom Wallet, the official wallet partner of BoDoggos and the Nifty. When you're dealing with Ethereum and Solana crypto assets, security should be your number one priority, obviously, and that's why Phantom offers cutting-edge security features to keep your assets safe. With some of the notable personalities and Web3 professionals in this space getting hacked, Phantom is set out to create a better solution and improve on some of the security issues that many users currently face with alternative wallets. So there's a browser extension and mobile apps that offer a transaction simulator prior to completing the transaction that's designed to protect you and your extremely valuable assets from phishing attacks. Phantom also supports Ledger Mobile, ensuring your assets are kept secure even with hardware wallets. So the user interface is super easy to understand, unlike other wallets, and it keeps you informed and in control. Also, I talked about it earlier, the support for multiple Ethereum and Solana seed phrases. You can import and manage your wallets all in one place without the need to send NFTs or transfer assets. You don't have to switch between your wallets for BoDoggos. You can seamlessly manage everything in one location without leaving the app. So if you are ready to upgrade your wallet security, download Phantom by visiting the link in the pinned tweet and fund your Ethereum wallet for the ultimate NFT experience. That is phantom.app. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. We run this show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10:15 a.m. Eastern time, right here on Twitter Spaces, on YouTube if you want the video feed also. And if you want to share this with people outside of the Twitter universe, go to Apple and Spotify for the audio podcast. Those links are all available in the NFT Morning Show Twitter account. The free NFT today, if you go to the nifty.com/claim, the code is BRAVE88, BRAVE 88. That's the code for today's free NFT from the Long Live Solana series. Very pumped about this series. Love these free NFTs. So go to the nifty.com/claim, put in the code word BRAVE88. Thank you for